Our top story, of course, the top story this weekend is what's happening in Venezuela and the repercussions around the world. 30 hours after American forces snatched Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife Celia Flores from their compound in Caracas, it's still unclear what happens next. Washington insists that the United States will control the country until there's a peaceful transition of power. But what does that actually mean in real terms? Earlier today, the US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, insisted that America was not at war with Venezuela.
There's not a war. I mean, we are at war against drug trafficking organizations. It's not a war against Venezuela. We are enforcing American laws with regards to oil sanctions. We have sanctioned entities. We go to court. We get a warrant. We seize those boats with oil, and that will continue. We would continue to reserve the right to take strikes against drug boats that are bringing drugs towards the United States that are being operated by transnational criminal organizations, including the Cartel de los Soles. Of course, the leader of that cartel, is now in U.S. custody and facing U.S. justice.
Delcy Rodriguez, who is Nicolás Maduro's deputy, is now Venezuela's interim leader. But Donald Trump made it clear earlier today that if she doesn't play ball with his administration, she personally will pay what the US president described as a very high price. Joining us now is Jason Marczak, Vice President and Senior Director of the Latin American Center at the Atlantic Council. Hello there, Jason.
Well, how are you doing today?
I'm exhausted by this Venezuelan story, but still hungry for more intel and information. I don't really know where to start, other than a comment by John Bonfiglio, who we spoke to in the previous hour, who said that the Venezuelan constitution, if there is a transferal of power, does require elections to be held within 30 days of this happening. Now, I don't know whether what has happened in Venezuela fits the criteria for that or whether that is at all likely to happen. But I noticed that neither Marco Rubio nor Donald Trump were talking in particularly enthusiastic terms about waiting for elections or putting in place democratic elections in Venezuela, and just that they want to continue working, it seems, with Delcy Rodriguez. What's your take on this?
Well, I hear you on Venezuela. I've been nonstop focused on Venezuela ever since early yesterday morning, and has spent many, many years working on Venezuela. As far as elections, now there is a couple different articles of the Venezuelan Constitution, and the Supreme. So if Delcy Rodriguez had taken power under what's called under Article 233, then there would need to be an election within 30 days. If Maduro was declared vacating the seat, then elections have to be held within 30 days. That's what you said. That's your previous speaker said. That has not happened, right? What actually originally was thought to happen was she was named as acting president, and acting president is Article 234. And under that, you can serve as acting president for 90 days. And then that can be renewed by the National Assembly for an additional 90 days. That gives you 6 months to serve as acting president before the National Assembly has to decide if the post has actually been vacated fully, in which case the other article applies and elections have to be called within 30 days. However, the Supreme Court has already said that Article 234 also doesn't apply.
Right.
And that administrative continuity applies. This is the same thing that they invoked in 2012 while Chavez was dying. So we have an answer now as to whether the Constitution is going to be respected, and to whether either of those timelines, that 30-day timeline laid out if the presidency is vacant for elections, or the 90-day timeline, so 6 months in total, in which someone can serve as acting president. So my aspiration is that the U.S. pushes for elections within this like a 6-month period. But the Supreme Court of Venezuela has said that basically we're at a standstill insofar as whether the clock has to start ticking with regard to an election being held.
Thank you very much for setting all that out. So where are we then? Because Delcy Rodriguez is riding two very difficult horses right now. She is trying to keep her administration together elements of it are being much more belligerent than she is. We know that she's had a conversation with Marco Rubio, but Rubio wouldn't go into the details of what was discussed. How do you see this playing out over the course of the next few months?
Well, look, I mean, I think what's going to be critical. Well, first off, it's a question of, can the U.S. trust Delcy Rodriguez? And apparently the administration has taken the decision that basically, better the devil that we know than the devil that we don't know. So let's try out Delcy Rodriguez and see if she's going to work with us. Now, she is she was Maduro's vice president. She is a Chavista loyalist. She's more of a technocrat than Maduro is. And I think that's why the administration decided that they would give it a shot in trying to work with her. Now, she's going to have to, if she does decide she wants to work with the administration, with the U.S. administration, then she's going to have to play a really delicate balance between working with the U.S. while also being publicly and probably also privately to a degree among the Venezuelan people and with the Chavista base, privately with some of the inner sanctum of Chavismo. She will have to play this role of being defiant of the U.S., but at the same time working with the U.S. And that's going to be a really tight rope for her to walk. And it's a question of whether she even wants to walk that tightrope, or is she even inclined to want to work with the United States?
Yeah.
Or not.
What if she makes a calculation that President Trump's administration isn't going to be able to go in and get her or effect regime change or start backing Maria Machado and Edmundo Gonzalez, the opposition leaders, and just tell him where to stick it?
Well, well, first off, I think that the U.S. administration has been actually surprisingly, I think one of the biggest surprises of the last of the weekend has been the fact that the U.S. has been very cautious in putting any support behind Edmundo Gonzalez and Maria Machado. President Trump called called her a nice lady yesterday in his presser, and I think today in the Secretary Rubio referred to her as having admiration for her. So this longstanding support that the U.S. has had for the opposition has not played out over the course of the weekend. What we've seen instead is a shift to trying to work with Delcy Rodriguez. And there hasn't actually even been a strong call for immediate elections. Secretary Rubio has talked about a transition period. So I think a recognition that, sure, elections need to happen, but that's not going to be our top priority in the immediate term.
Really good to speak to you, Jason. Thank you very much for your time. Jason Marczak, Vice President and Senior Director of the Latin American Centre at the Atlantic Council. Let's go for a different take on this. What ordinary Venezuelan people are feeling about this. We've seen all sorts of reaction all around the world and in Caracas as well, varying levels of intensity and happiness. This is basically, earlier on Times Radio, we had a Venezuelan diplomat, Dr. Vanessa Newman, speaking to Carol Walker about the situation on the ground in Venezuela.
People are afraid to come out and say, hey, this was great, or thank goodness Maduro is gone. And people are actually closing down their WhatsApp communications so that their phones can't be checked, because their reality is Maduro may be gone, but the risk of capture, torture, and repression is actually higher now than before Maduro's capture.
So I wonder how it feels to be watching these events unfold from the UK as a Venezuelan. Joining us now is Cynthia DeSantis, who is founder of Healing Venezuela, a charity, and has also been living in the UK for more than 20 years. Hi there, Cynthia.
Hi.
What are your immediate feelings when you heard that Maduro had been ousted by the US?
The immediate feeling was relief, of course, and, a few moments later, trepidation, uncertainty. So it has been a little bit of a roller coaster of emotions. It's a very fluid situation. We don't know exactly what's going on the ground. So we have been in touch with our doctors there, and they're very cautious about what's going on, but at the same time also a huge sense of relief that at least Maduro and Celia have been taken in the most.
we're seeing the Venezuelan diaspora celebrating around the world, but it's a very, very different story in Caracas and Venezuela. And are you saying that's down to fear?
It is time to fear. I would say, I mean, when we talk with people who are there, they, of course, they are very cautious because, we know how brutal the regime can be, and at the moment they're really not sure who's in charge. Okay, I think your previous guest and you also mentioned there was this uncertainty about what's the role, what Delcy Rodriguez really, what is she doing? So a few minutes before I joined this call, there was one of our commentators, a reputable commentator, who said that actually Secretary of State Marco Rubio, he already hinted at that they are talking directly with Fuerte-Tiuna, and Fuerte-Tiuna is like the heart of the military in Venezuela. So if they are bypassing Delcy Rodriguez, it means that the main character in this play, it's the army. So Vladimir Padrino, who, by the way, there is a bounty on his head for 25 million, but he is a key player because he is the head of the army.
And I understand he has very close relations to Russia as well.
Vladimir Padrino has close relationship with whoever can stash his money. So it's more the ideologues there are Delcy Rodriguez and the brother, Jorge Rodriguez. They are the real ideologues. And they are the clever of the law and also the most dangerous of the law precisely because they are clever. So, yes.
Are you insinuating that the others are just lining their pockets?
Well, they are all lining their pockets. Okay, so not only these people that we talk about, but also the top brass of the army. We know that they have been really enriching themselves illegally, but the more ideologues, I would say, that are these Delcy and Jorge. Padrino, of course, he receives the support from Russia. I mean, Russia has been supporting Venezuela from a military point of view, but Cuba as well, Iran as well, Hezbollah. So this has been a long story of a strong relationship with these agents that has been going on actually for decades.
Yeah.
Let's say years, but definitely, at least a decade.
I have a dear friend who's married to a Venezuelan, and he's often relating the total collapse of Venezuelan state. Your charity has been operating on the ground in there. What has it been like? What reports do you hear back as you try to operate a medical charity in an environment where things simply aren't working and rampant corruption is everywhere, and the country's depopulating?
Yes. 9 million of us have left the country, and 30,000 or more. I mean, 30% of specialized doctors have left the country. So basically, from a medical point of view, from a state, the hospitals in Venezuela are run by junior doctors who earn $80 per month, and they see an average 200 people per month. So it's really, it's very precarious, but there is a lot of determination from doctors to keep working and to keep helping people there. We've been able to work, it's a little bit like a tango. So one step ahead, two step, backwards and forwards. So we're trying to be very low profile. We don't have a political profile in our social media. We're trying to do our work, which is actually their job. And so we haven't been harassed as other NGOs have been in the past. So, we have a scholarship for junior doctors. We have installed potable water plants in hospitals because, quality of water is so poor that baby and elderly people would die of waterborne bacteria. We have teenage pregnancy prevention programs, malnutrition prevention program. And, because we are a charity of volunteers, so and little money can go a long way in Venezuela. So it has been, and the focus on public health has meant that there is a huge impact.
Of course. I'm sorry to interrupt. We don't have a huge amount of time before we have to say goodbye to you. But I'm just thinking and listening to you here, and having read up on the history of Venezuela over the course of the weekend, it must be heartbreaking to you the way that a country so rich in abundance with natural resources, not least the fact it seems to have, or it's believed to have 18% of the global reserves of oil underneath the ground, the way that you've been consistently let down over decades by the political classes in Venezuela.
It's yes, as you say, it's really heartbreaking. It's very hard for us, but we support each other, and we just try to plow on.
So what hope does the latest development give you, if any?
No, definitely there is hope now. I do believe that, even if it's in this fog and this transition period, I do think that it's the beginning of the end. Now is really the beginning of the end. It's going to be a very delicate period, and we need to be very careful. And for us as a humanitarian charity, our focus is going to be, let's keep our people safe. Let's keep operating in hospital. Let's keep helping our junior doctor. That's our main concern at the moment. And let's hope that the humanitarian crisis that we have seen in the past doesn't unfold again, even worse than what it is now.
Cynthia, great to speak to you. That's Cynthia DeSantis, founder of Healing Venezuela, a Venezuelan citizen who's been living in the UK.